Hello, you lovely bad ones. Here's something again. The bot from Osterholz with the big orange hands. And the absolute main winner of today is the Hämmerli Hunter Force 600. And for a change, I have very little to complain about. That's surprising, but it happens. Here it is happening. Sure, this thing has its downsides too, but I intentionally took the scope off again this time. You know, I usually put the scope on for zeroing in, for test shooting, so to speak. But yeah, now I took it off again, just like that. Hämmerli. You know, I always put the scope on for zeroing in, for test shooting, so to speak. But yeah, now I took it off again, just like that. Hämmerli. Of course, this thing isn't from Hämmerli. Hämmerli is just a brand name, but now I took it off again, just like that. Hämmerli. Of course, this thing isn't from Hämmerli. Hämmerli is just a brand name. The company Hämmerli, the factory burned down at some point, and despite the Swiss name, it is actually a German company, but the factory has been destroyed. The rights have been bought up. I don't know now, Yusan, whether GSG or Umerix bought it up. You can just check Wikipedia, I'm too lazy for that. Anyway, this thing comes from somewhere. I'll check it out in a moment, and I'll read the device to you again. I'm just holding it out into the landscape. And just to point out, I've of course put on my big orange hands, but without the big orange hands, this thing feels really good. I've mentioned a few times already, wood is always better than plastic. I was also convinced for a long time, yeah, my god, it doesn't cost extra. It's true, it looks better, it feels thicker. So I feel like I have more in my hand here. It has a cut fish skin texture on it, so I like it. The color is really nice, it's relatively dark. I know my video editing still makes the colors look a bit weird. Outside here on the monitor, it has a slightly greenish tone. In reality, it's really beautiful dark wood. So it's really a visual treat. I emphasize this because I see here, I know it will get even worse after the video editing with the color. But that's very good. I'll stop by reading out loud. Nothing is written on this side. It's simple and straightforward. It says Hämmerli Hunter Force 600 on here. I don't know if there's a 500 or a 400. I also know I wanted to check again what the new price of this thing is. But unfortunately I've pushed it out of my mind. I'm looking. I'll write it down later in the video. Then you'll know what's on the side. Now I need to turn around. And here it is picked up. At first I was scared, oh my god, no F sign, and oh my god, no serial number. They laser etched it right here on top, very discreetly. Well, you can't see much of it. There's a serial number, caliber indication, and the F sign. With this elegant method, you avoid having to write made in somewhere on it. If it were made in Germany, they would have definitely written it somewhere on it, and that's why it's probably made in China. It just has to say an importer on it. That's important so that the German authorities can get someone on the hook in case something happens. Where it was made, they don't really care about that. So, there's actually very little written on it. That's actually quite pleasing because, for aesthetic reasons, something like this doesn't get any prettier with intense labeling. Let's start with the wooden handle. I just praised it, and I'm going to keep doing that. I can say something about the size. Just very much the linen. Yeah, come on. So it could be another 3 centimeters longer for me. It wouldn't be a problem either because we have a straight finish, so you could put an insert in between with longer screws. The rubberized butt pad with ventilation, because of the killer recoil that a 4.5 mm at 7.5 joules has. Completely unlike a 9.3x74 or something like that. Yeah. A cheek piece for right-handed shooters. But they can shoot right and left-handed. As I said, it feels solid. 1,000 really, really good. I've now gotten my hands on quite a few air rifles, and I would say that, just from the feel of it, this one definitely belongs to the best. I'm a bit puzzled by these covers here for the butt pads, for the butt screws at the front, because I just had that same weird cover on a Mercury a few days ago, and I'm wondering how it ended up on a Hämmerli. Well, who's the importer? I think Franconia is the importer for Mercury. Well, who's the importer? So for the Mercury, I think Franconia is the importer for Mercury. I don't have who Hämmerli is in mind right now. 1,000. But still, it says embraced here, so we know where it is. Yeah, I really don't have much more to say about the wood. I think it's all very nice. It seems like, well, I have a little scratch here. But otherwise, this thing seems to be practically flawless. The previous owner also insists that he never actually shot with it. I believe him too. It looks like new, actually. The trigger guard is probably made of plastic, I think. With my gloves here, it's always hard to say. So, the plastic screwed in, nicely sunk. The trigger blade seems to be made of plastic. Solid but pretty thick. Unfortunately, it's not adjustable. A proper recoil spring, so it's already uncompressed. Decent trigger resistance. You can do something about it, maybe make it a bit lighter. Since it has metal parts here too. Here there are some very light scratches. Once here, probably from the previous sight tube. The barrel is relatively smooth, and the sights fit well. I like to take a look without the sight tube to see if the comb and the cheek piece would fit me, and I have to say, without having to really press my cheek in, it fits okay. It's a bit tricky for me sometimes. And I have to say, without having to really press my cheek in, it fits okay. It's a bit tricky for me. I'm wearing a bit more on the cheeks here. A really, really crucial feature. Automatic safety. You know, I love automatic safeties because they're incredibly useful here in Germany. On top of that, this one is mounted in a way that's just impossible. So, to disengage it here is practically impossible. It's not working. You have to use your other hand to get into this groove. I'll hold it out for you. You have to somehow get your thumb into this groove, but it's just not possible. But this automatic safety can be relatively easily disabled because when cocking, I noticed that this safety isn't mechanically pushed out by the cocking lever, but it's allowed to go into the safety position due to a spring. That means you can either just hold it while cocking, then nothing gets secured. Or, if you look on this side, on the other side, a pin comes out with which you can practically feel whether it's secured or not. I'll tell you about the light right away. There you see a red ring, a painted red ring. It's a bit narrower than the rest. That means it should be possible to fix this permanently with the snap ring and maybe a small washer underneath. Of course, there's also the option to simply remove the spring inside so that it doesn't come out anymore. Or you could clamp something vertically onto the stock so that nothing gets in the way. So, it can be relatively easily worked on, and without much disassembly, this safety can be set aside. So, in the end, that's a huge plus. Because you know, automatic safeties are always a hassle. And this one is easy to remove. We've got a stopper at the back behind the rail, so that scopes don't wander off, and it really does its job. Well, I'll get into the details about that later. Otherwise, I'll mess everything up again. Here's rear sight. Is this plastic or is it metal? If I have to ask that, then that's already a good sign. But I'm guessing I wanted to put a magnet here. I forget it regularly. I think it's going to be plastic. The light collecting rear sight is adjustable in height and windage. The height is adjustable with a knurled screw, while the windage is only held with a slotted screw, although they can certainly be easily replaced with something else. Up front here we have one grain with a light collector. Interestingly, it's not the usual plastic bead that's just stuck on. Yeah, I know you're just a camera. Otherwise I wouldn't be holding the barrel right in front of you. So, it's not the usual plastic bead that's just stuck on. That part up front seems to be metal. There's a little, like a muzzle brake, a kind of sight rail. Or did I just miss that? No, I didn't miss it. Here are just two screws that hold everything in place up front. I don't want to determine right now whether it's plastic or metal. In any case, the front sight protector is definitely made of metal. I always think that's great. It's a rectangular bead. It's coming back to bite me that I have my demo glasses here. Well, I wouldn't really call the front sight rectangular, but since I've already praised the sights, in the end, it works. Where did I not want to ramble on? I think the exciting part was the tensioning. Definitely exciting. Alright, then I'll just tension this thing. That clicks easily, but the cracking doesn't come easily at all. Here it is, right? So that's real. There's fire on the spring. So disengage the safety, hold it, and pull the trigger. Yeah, I can also release it in a cocked state by disengaging the safety, without having to waste a shot every time. but it's really, really exhausting. But it doesn't hurt. I don't think it's bad because every bit of work does me good. And when you do this here, you get a nice strong left arm. Noise control. Yeah, God, you can hear a little bit, but it's not that serious. Then let's do a build. The trigger doesn't belong, I would like to say. That's pretty much the only real downside I would bring up. Everything else, you know, that it's still a bit stiff and practically unused. In 30 years, it's all different. It looks completely different. So, disengage the safety, move past the barrel sideways, and the pull is very, very short. The trigger is rock hard. It jerks and bangs. After the pull, a hard trigger. Then there's a little jerk, and after that, something you can't really call a pressure point. But it also comes quite suddenly. So there's just one jerk. I think this is one of those air rifles, where you can achieve a lot by polishing the latches. There must be some kind of unevenness. It could also be that after the first 1,000 shots, everything is so planned down that you won't have any problems with it anymore. So if I'm complaining about that, it's already at a high level. Otherwise, I really have nothing to complain about. On the contrary, I think the thing is beautiful. It really feels great. And now it just has to hit. And here we come to this. As always, 10 shots from a seated position, 10 meters. And as always, this side is relatively unimportant because everything that's there, I can just adjust the height through the scope. This is the important side, and it looks like this. I would say it's not a hallelujah, but it's perfectly fine for a leisure rifle, for sure. Sure, there are shotguns that shoot even more accurately. Maybe it'll all settle in a bit over time. But it's not a scattergun or anything. Everything works, and the number of outliers is relatively manageable. You could try some other Diablo pellets. That was one. The other one is, of course, this guy here, 2001. You obviously want to know what kind of power is in the shotgun. I can tell you that now. There and 7.6, 7.7, 7.4, 7.7, 7.5, 7.7, 7.2, 7.0, 7.6, 7.3, 7.4, 7.7, 57.7, 7.2, 7.0, 7.6, 7.3, 7.4797. So that's how it stays. Then you say, oh no, that's over 7.5. Yes, but it's legal because these 7.5 joules refer to the production variation in the firearms regulation. Under point 2, I believe it says that in the official individual measurement, meaning if the thing lands somewhere on the table, then the average of 10 shots must stay below 8 joules, and outliers must stay below 8.5 joules. Plus minus bon standard deviation. It's a bit of a mathematical thing. Either way, even if the thing shoots a bit over 7.5, it's still well within what the law graciously allows us. Yes, and I can take another look at the spread. Shot count 20. High 182 ms, low 172 ms, average 179 ms, spread 10 meter, standard deviation 2 ms. I'd say you can't really push the legal limits much further in German law. So this thing has power of legal power. That's much more important. Yeah, I don't know. I usually talk a lot more about any rifles. I'm just taking a look at it. 14 minutes 28? Well, that's it again. I'm collecting too much again. Why do I still have this on here? Batteries are expensive. Electricity is expensive. Then there's the environmental levy, and the CO2 surcharge, and increased energy tax. And the Red-Green Coalition is making sure that the cost of living doesn't get too high. No, actually they're making sure that everything gets a lot more expensive. Let's also collect more taxes and stuff. Yeah, what should I say about that? Yusen, I'm trying to keep my personal collection, you know, the stuff that should stay here permanently, to a maximum 8 pieces, so they all fit in one cabinet. That's kind of my goal. It's getting tight. It's already tight with the 8th one. This one has a real chance of staying permanently, because if I can get the trigger to work a bit better and live with it, I mean, it won't get more precise than this, but if I'm not trying to shoot tenths or any matchbox holes, then this should be enough. And I think they're beautiful. Also the G, the poor old man, doesn't have much to complain about either. I'm only marginally interested in any kind of sights, but then is there some kind of Zephyr tube on it? I don't know. But this monster device here fits, but that would be a candidate. Yeah. This one would be a bit long. This one would fit. Doesn't it look nice, or what? What do we have in here again? It must be written somewhere. 4 to 12 times 50. 2001? Yeah. This air rifle does look a bit like something for hunting. Of course, a hunting scope would also look pretty good with it. I need to sleep on it for a night. Maybe 2 or 3 or 5. I have too many other air rifles that I still need to deal with at the moment. Especially ones I need to get rid of. You might have seen in the video that I wanted to sell various air rifles. 2001. Directly on YouTube. Sensational success, not a single inquiry. So I tried to sell it at a fixed price through Egan, but then there was no shipping, because I really want to avoid having to deal with shipping. Also, I had a Hungarian who bought blindly. Then I fell. Oh damn, I didn't read it. Shipping. Especially not abroad. Yeah, so I guess I'll have to begrudgingly stock up on professional packaging materials. That costs again. And I'll actually just start them with $1 as the starting bid, and then see what the market spits out, and then they'll have to ship. It doesn't help at all. If you spread it out over several air rifles, the cost of any shipping materials isn't that bad anymore. So that puts you at, let's say, $5 per rifle, plus the packaging costs. But it's all doable. It doesn't hit any arms. Yeah, better than them just sitting around and getting green mold. That, and especially with this one, would really be a shame. So that's enough saddled up. Then I would say that's it for today. I'll think about it. Yeah, and the man is thoughtfully considering how to disable the safety. Thoughtfully. Man with the big orange hands ends. 2001. The drummer, as they tend to call me, as one might say. As one might say me. No, that's wrong. As they tend to call me in casual terms. He points out, emphasizes that we just have 21.7 degrees in here. Phew, it's cold. And that I have to turn off my camera all by myself again like every time.